Om, 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 Punarvasu Nakshatra Namaha. Namaste everyone. So welcome to a series of videos dedicated to the Nakshatras, the Vedic lunar mentions. And today we are going to talk about Punarvasu Nakshatra. So you can see there's a bamboo behind me. Bamboo is actually a sacred tree of Punarvasu Nakshatra. And you see, bamboo is a sacred tree not just of Punarvasu Nakshatra, but also of Jupiter or Brihaspati, who happens to be the planetary ruler of Nakshatra Punarvasu. And why is that so? You see, Jupiter is presiding graha over the ether element, the element of all-embracing space. And if you look at bamboo, bamboo is empty inside, right? And interestingly enough, even the presiding deity of Punarvasu Nakshatra itself is goddess Aditi, the Vedic divine mother, who was also considered a presiding deity of ether element. Because similarly, like ether, gives space for everything to grow, for everything to exist. So divine mother, nature, prakriti, gives space for everything to grow. And same, like bamboo actually happens to be the fastest growing plant on our planet. So also Punarvasu Nakshatra is very, very creative. So today we'll talk about it a little bit more in detail. So Mother Aditi, she was actually the Vedic form of Mother Nature, who embraces everything, who gives space for everything to grow. That's why she's called Aditi, which means undivided, because she never divides, she never discerns, she never judges. In nature itself, there is space for everything and for everybody, good and bad. There's no this distinction on good and bad, no duality in nature itself. It's only dwelling in our mind. So Aditi, representing this creative principle of God so present in the creation itself, is presiding over this special nakshatra, and because of that also you will see that the natives who are born under this lunar mention, especially when moon is dwelling there, are very, very creative. They have plenty of creative ideas, actually. And sometimes you may even see that they have more ideas than they are actually able to realize. So that is their weakness too. They have lots of creativity, lots of divine inspiration, lots of, this passion to create. But because it's a very etheric nakshatra, sometimes, they need a little bit more grounding. And when you look at nature itself, how it's growing, how it's progressing, it's always growing and evolving through some type of repetition, through some type of patterns. Punarvasu Nakshatra itself is very much connected with patterns and repetitions, since it means return of light or return of wealth, something that comes and manifests once again. And in fact, Goddess Aditi herself is connected, to all these beautiful fractals that we see in nature and all the beautiful patterns themselves. And this is why you see, in Punarvasu natives, you may frequently notice that for them, in order for them to remember something, they may frequently need to repeat it a couple of times. Even if they go through some life lessons, sometimes they actually need to go through them twice, not just once. Even if they know with their mind that some direction is not good, maybe for them to take, but if they didn't experience it yet, if they didn't have this negative experience that really taught them not to go into some direction, they might not really learn it. So this is why you may sometimes see in their lives really some very repetitive patterns. And the biggest challenge for them is to learn how to rise above these repetitive patterns, rise above these habits, and to know which patterns it is healthy to keep in your life and which patterns you need to let go of. And since these natives are so, connected to Mother Aditi, who is this creative force, the entire universe, since they're so connected to this Akash, sometimes they may have such a great ideas, actually, so innovative ideas. You'll see that these are some of the most innovative people who brought something really new, which is actually really fascinating to observe. And sometimes if you even look at some of the ideas that Punarvasu natives are having, you might even think, from where did this idea came from? But as much as they may sometimes have such a great ideas, but sometimes these ideas might be also very unrealistic and very impractical as well. It depends, of course, which graha specifically is dwelling in Punarvasu Nakshatra, but for these natives, some of the most important life lessons is how to connect this ether element full of ideas and creativity with the stability and practicality of earth element. The Shakti, or the power of Punarvasu Nakshatra, is vasutva prapanna Shakti, which actually literally would mean the power to gain substance or the power to manifest something into being. So the power to take something from the level of the idea itself into the level of matter. So to take the idea and manifest this in this very real world. And paradoxically, very frequently you will notice that planets in Punarvasu Nakshatra, if you have, for example, any graha dwelling in Punarvasu Nakshatra, you may not really have this power yet. In fact, this planet and whatever this planet signifies in your personal life, it may still need to learn how to manifest things on a material level. It may still, need to learn how to take this idea and not just keep it on the level of the idea and hope that it will manifest one day, but how to actually really work on it happening on material plane. And this, in fact, I consider the most important life lesson for Punarvasu Nakshatra natives. Doesn't matter which planet is dwelling there. Punarvasu actually happens to be also one of the lightest nakshatras. You will see that people who especially have moon in Punarvasu are very easygoing people. Keep in mind that actual animal connected to Punarvasu Nakshatra is female cat. So these are people who are very relaxed, naturally. Punarvasu is also a Deva Nakshatra. So it means that its temperament is also naturally very soft and gentle as well. Plus its ether element. So normally, Punarvasu natives, whether there's ascendant or moon there, they have this very pleasant, easygoing personality. But of course, if Krura Graha is dwelling there, it might add a little bit of intensity into that. Also, as in the case of all nakshatras which are ruled by Jupiter, Punarvasu Nakshatra natives have this tendency to, they're very optimistic people, but sometimes they can be overly optimistic. So they have this tendency to get very easily excited about things. Very easily they get very optimistic about things. But sometimes it is to the extent that they don't see actual real obstacle or real flaw or real danger in that exact thing. So this is where they sometimes once again can get a little bit unrealistic, simply speaking. And this is where they can also get a little bit unrealistic expectations, either about themselves or more frequently about reality and the possibilities that are there. So they also need to learn how to control too much, of optimism and excitement, present within them. Because otherwise, if they get too easily excited or too optimistic about something, then when they meet the first, even the smallest obstacle, they very easily feel discouraged because they feel that their expectations were not fulfilled. So if you're a Punarvasu native, remember whenever there is an expectation and too much of an expectation, most likely there will also come a disappointment. So try to control that as well. And because it is such an optimistic nakshatra, it's also a very idealistic nakshatra, So sometimes, and especially in the beginning of life, these people may have this belief that everything is just, perfect, in world and in life. And this is once again where they can get very easily disappointed. But also when you look at their beliefs, what they believe into, they are very idealistic about that, which is in a sense also good because they are normally, due to that, also, very environmentally aware people, very socially aware people. But once again, sometimes their ideals and the things that they believe may not really match or fit the reality. So you see, if you look at all the Jupiter nakshatras, what these natives always need to do is to find some type of integrity, some type of union, some type of compromise between their ideals and what is really possible in reality itself. Mother Aditi, who is the presiding deity of Punarvasu Nakshatra, also, like we already said, Aditi means the undivided one. You see, Aditi represents this divine, non-dualistic state of mind, non-judgmental state of mind. You see, Aditi happens to be the mother of gods in Vedic tradition, while her sister, Diti, is the mother of demons. Because Diti means dual one or divided one. And Diti gives birth, to these so-called demons, because if our mind itself is full of dualities, if we constantly judge things on good and bad, high and low, it will give birth, to lots of vices in our mind itself, which are represented by those demons. While the more our mind is non-dual and non-judgmental and just, all embracing, but very discerning at the same time, of course, the more divine it becomes. And this is the quality, of Aditi as well. This is why you will see that those natives can be very good observers, then can be very impartial also observers, actually. So this is one very, very dominant quality of Punarvasu natives, and they are really capable to look at things without judgment and without prejudice. Of course, if Moon is comfortable there. But because they are so impartial, sometimes it is hard for them to actually make choices. So they can be a little bit indecisive, actually. And this is very logical if you understand that the 10th nakshatra from Punarvasu is Vishakha. Vishakha literally means a split one. And, actual, I would say, weakness of Vishakha nakshatra is that it sometimes tries, to, please people too much, please both sides too much. And tries to compromise too much as well. And this is also what Punarvasu natives will have a tendency to do, because for them Vishakha is nakshatra number 10 from the natal moon. And the 10th nakshatra from natal moon is called karma nakshatra, or star of our action. How do we take and manifest our action into the world? So when it comes to their actions, they may be very indecisive sometimes, and making choices is a very difficult process for them sometimes. They may literally, spend a lot of time, just to make some very simple life choice. Of course, it is a quality that improves over time as well. But one thing that Punarvasu natives really need to learn in life is that it's never possible to please everybody. And sometimes you need to make a choice which potentially may hurt somebody. And it's just unavoidable, in the world. So this is the truth which needs to be more embraced, I would say, rather than trying to be avoided. Because if we try to please everybody too much, if we try to make something too ideal to the extent that it's not possible to do it, we'll just end up doing nothing in the end. And this is how it can frequently end also for Punarvasu natives. They may have these great ideas and about all these things that they would like to do, but to make this choice, what to do, to make this choice like, yes, I choose this specific idea to manifest this, it may be hard for them. So that is something they need to work on a little bit versus trying, to have a candy and eat a candy at the same time, because most likely it's simply not possible in most cases. And precisely because of that quality, you will also frequently see that Punarvasu natives, actually they may have more than just one career path. They may be actually doing more than just one thing in life. I know that is perfectly okay. In fact, you may see these people even very frequently changing their jobs, changing their hobbies, changing their area of interest, and this is perfectly fine. The only thing that is very important for them to always know what is the priority and to stick to that. Because otherwise, if they'll keep changing too much and too frequently, they may end up not really being successful in any sphere. Because if you do too many things at the same time, without knowing what is the priority for you specifically at the moment, what really matters for you, you may, just lose yourself too much in this all-embracing ether element of that nakshatra. So like you probably already sense, some of the greatest lessons for Punarvasu natives is to learn how to be, simply speaking, more grounded, more down to earth, more practical, how to spend a little bit less time in their head, in their imagination, thinking about great things and great ideas, and a little bit of time more actually trying to manifest those ideas, trying to actually implement those ideas. And of course, if it is balanced by a strong Mars or maybe strong Saturn in a birth chart, this quality will improve over time. But if there is no strong influence of Mars, neither Saturn there, then these natives may really have a problem with manifesting their ideas. And this is where it becomes so important for them, to try to be more grounded, try to do some physical activity, try to do some yoga, to be a little bit more present in the moment versus always looking to some very distant future. And since ether element itself, it is the most free of all elements, it's the most light of all elements. This is why for these natives, freedom is very important. They need to be able to sense freedom in their life, because if they don't, they feel, somehow threatened in a sense. So even if you maybe have a Punarvasu native in your family or somebody who's your friend, remember that freedom, and this space to breathe is very important for them. Yet also, if you are maybe Punarvasu native yourself, remember that sometimes your sense of freedom, might not always be really healthy, because of course it depends on your personal planetary placements in your birth chart. But very frequently, what you can also see with Punarvasu Nakshatra, that these natives, may just, how to say, they may want to have freedom so much to the extent of running away from actual commitment. So this can happen as well. And this conflict you can see in Punarvasu Nakshatra because the 22nd star, or Vinashika Nakshatra, so the nakshatra which, how to say, shows some of our biggest fears and biggest weaknesses in our birth chart, is Revati for Punarvasu natives. And Revati is some of, the most, I would say, codependent nakshatras. This is why, Punarvasu natives, they don't like codependency. They always run away from codependency. But sometimes they're actually ending up in codependent life situations when they actually need to be dependent on somebody else, just so they learn to confront, this part of themselves. And then just so they learn how to find freedom rather inside themselves versus in external life circumstances. So that is all from me for today about Punarvasu Nakshatra, and thank you so much for watching and being here with me. I also made a longer webinar on Punarvasu Nakshatra when we are discussing also all the padas of Punarvasu Nakshatra, its sensitive degrees, the mythology, Vedic mythology connected to goddess Aditi, as well as looked through some study cases to understand how this energy of Punarvasu Nakshatra really manifests in real life. So if you would like to watch it, you have the link below. You can purchase the recording. And this month in December, we are also going to have, in the middle of December, the webinar about Pushya Nakshatra, the next nakshatra. So if you want to join us, you can join me on Patreon. You also have the link below for that. So that's all from me for today. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time. Namaste.